So many people at this point are asking if the Guard is an effective way to back up ICE. How do you see it?
Well, I think the answer to that is very clear. The Guard is not a civilian law enforcement agency. The National Guard is a trained military reserve force. It is not, excuse me, it is not a law enforcement force. My understanding is that the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles cost about $140 million for a couple of months. Can you imagine how many police officers you could hire, whether in LA or in Chicago, for $140 million? A lot of folks who would be trained to do the job they're supposed to do. They're not cops, they're soldiers. Let's remember that.
Right. Yeah, people got to keep that in mind as they're walking through the streets and seeing what we've been showing there. Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth says that Trump's plan to send troops to cities to crack down on crime doesn't really align with their mission. Let's listen.
So were the governor to ask me if he should activate the Illinois National Guard, my advice to him would be no. It is not an appropriate use of the National Guard. Again, this is political theater. This is an attempt to politicize our military for a wannabe tin pot dictator in Donald Trump. It is not the right use of the National Guard. The National Guard should not be on the streets of our city intimidating citizens. They should not be carrying weapons of war and being told that they should be pointing those weapons of war on our citizens. That is not the use of the National Guard.
Okay, so it sounds like she lines up with what you were saying. And we're also wondering if the strain of the Guard being out on the streets of Chicago, if they're called for other emergencies, what happens then? Are there enough Guardsmen to handle that?
Well, it's certainly an issue. You have to remember that every dollar you spend putting a National Guardsman on duty like this is a dollar you can't spend for a National Guardsman to help recover from hurricanes, to help fight floods, to be mobilized to send overseas to fight our nation's battles should that be necessary. So, and not to mention the costs on the Guardsmen themselves. A lot of people seem to be overlooking that. You know, these folks are part-time soldiers. They have jobs. Many of them are young people, young students, because of the great GI Bill benefits that a Guardsman gets. Those folks are going to school. So if you pull them out of school for 30 days, they don't miss 30 days of school. They miss an entire semester because you can't go back and make that up. You take them away from their families. Many times you take them away from a job where they get paid a whole lot more than they do being a Guardsman. Not to mention the impact on the employers. You know, employers have to find somebody to do the job that Guardsman was doing when they're called away. So there are a lot of costs here that aren't included in that $140 million payroll figure and expenses figure that we see for Los Angeles. When you start toting those costs up, they're high not only to the country, but to the individual Guardsman, the employer, and the families.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I don't think a lot of people have been talking about that angle of this story. One other thing that we are watching are these reports that the Guard is headed to a red state and heading to New Orleans. You know, how is that going to impact what we're seeing going on in Chicago and D.C. right now as you take a look at that possibility?
Well, it's a whole lot easier for the president to send the Guard into a red state, a blue city in a red state, than it is into a city in a blue state. That's because of the way the laws are written. The federal government can't mobilize the National Guard to send them in unless there's certain prerequisites met. Those would be rebellion or invasion or that sort of thing. And frankly, Donald Trump lost the federal lawsuit in Los Angeles over his deployment there, and he's going to continue to lose those lawsuits. Also, he doesn't want to give a platform to Governor Pritzker to stand up to him. So instead, he'll find a red state cooperative governor and who will allow the president to mobilize them under what's called Title 32. That's a different set of laws.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.